Hello, I am Endlessness and welcome back to Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, and in this video I'd like to share my analysis and comparison of Sephiroth's newest Odin gear and how it affects all his elemental builds. So Sephiroth got his new shiny big PP weapon that not only does good non-elemental damage, but it also applies exploit weakness, and this will affect his every elemental build. And because of that, I think an analysis and comparison could be useful. And I ran tests multiple times because the numbers always fluctuate and differ a little bit, so I have taken the average for each damage number. And I have compiled all the data on graphics to save time, because otherwise this video would be about an hour long, if not longer, so I just wanted to save you time here. And Sephiroth also has this all new Arcanum outfits, and I have tested it out as well to see the difference between his Mastery outfits, but also compared it with his normal Arcanum outfits to see what difference it might make. And on all builds I have just used normal DPS Sephiroth builds, and I didn't try to bloat his damage as much as possible by equipping all available weapons with attack for allies or abilities. And I have done all tests on Cactuars in max challenge battles. First, let's compare Odin with Protector's Blade for non-elemental damage, because while Odin can apply exploit weakness, which will benefit Sephiroth's every elemental build, it can also do non-elemental big PP damage, and until now Protector's Blade was Sephiroth's best non-elemental weapon. And here I have just copy-pasted my Bahamut's EX3 team, and I have only changed Sephiroth so that he has both Odin and Protector's Blade equipped at the same time, so that the stats during testing are the same, and therefore I could calculate how hard each weapon actually hits. So Protector's Blade initially deals 900% damage, and if against a single target it does additional 1.3 more damage. And I also have a 5.3% C-ability brand on it, bumping it up to 947, so with that additional boost against a single target, it deals 1231% damage. So a normal PB hit averages at 105,000 damage, and if it crits it's 160. Then after applying magic attack buff and magic defense debuff from Crimson Staff, PB hits for 180,000 damage and crit deals 270,000. And with Genji applying one extra attack buff, PB deals 192,000 damage per hit, and then with level 2 overspeed it averages at 200,000 damage. Now the Odin Blade, and initially it deals 1010% damage with additional 40,000 extra damage, and I have a 4.5% C-ability brand on it, and with it now Odin deals 1055% damage with additional 40,000. So normal hits are 139,000 damage, but a crit is 175,000. And with Crimson buffs it hits for 195,000 damage and a crit is 270,000. And Genji further bumps it up to 204,000 damage per hit on average. And lastly, level 2 overspeed, when it's activated with all those buffs and debuffs, Odin can deal 213,000 damage. So overall Odin Blade out DPS's Protector's Blade in every way, even against a single target. And interestingly, the biggest difference is on normal hit without any buffs and debuffs, because there is a 34,000 damage difference. And then with buffs and debuffs applied, it's between 10-15,000 damage. And that's the damage difference, and my Protector's Blade has a better C-ability brand by 0.8%. And that means that with the same C-ability brands, Odin Blade would hit even harder and the damage would be slightly bigger. And that also means if you use Sephiroth and you have both weapons for him, Protector's Blade has now become a glorified stat stick in a sub-weapon slot, as Odin Blade is just better even against a single target, and much better against multiple enemies, because Protector's Blade will lose that 1.3 damage multiplier. And I have to admit, I am a bit surprised. At first when I saw the banner I thought Odin would shine against multiple enemies, but Protector's Blade might still be slightly stronger against a single target, but I underestimated it. Now let's move to Sephiroth elemental builds, and first Ice with Edged Wings, and initially Edged Wings deals 800% magic ice damage, but I have also a 4.7% seeability brand on it, so with it Edged Wings deals 837% ice damage, and normal Edged Wings hit deals 339,000 damage, and then with high potency ice resistance debuff applied, Edged deals 504,000 damage, and then with Crimson buffs it jumps to 881,000, and Genji further bumps it up to 947,000. And if you also apply Ice damage buff, Edged Wings can deal 1.3 million damage. And with Overspeed, with that 5% attack boost, it gives a tiny additional damage buff as well. Now let's see the difference Exploit Weakness makes. Normal attack is the same, but with Exploit Weakness, Edged Wings now deals 471,000 damage, but with high potency ice resistance debuff it now hits for 720,000, so that's already almost 200,000 difference. And then with Crimson buffs applied it now deals 1.21 million damage, plus one more attack buff from Genji further increases it up a bit to 1.3 million damage. Then with Ice potency buff applied, Edged Wings deals 1.86 million damage, and 5% overspeed gives it additional small damage increase. And here we can see how much that Exploit Weakness can affect elemental damage output, because even without any buffs and debuffs, it's already a big difference, but then the more buffs and debuffs you start adding, the bigger the difference Exploit Weakness makes. But wait, there's more. The All Arcanum outfits. And I have compared Sephiroth's old Ice Arcanum outfit with this new All Arcanum outfit to see the difference, and there is no difference at all. That's very interesting, mostly because if you are missing Sephiroth's old outfit, there is no reason to get it now, as All Arcanum outfit provides the same damage increase, and also that attack for allies ability will affect the whole team as a bonus while Sephiroth isn't losing any damage. Also, the damage numbers per hit always differ a bit, so I have tested it out multiple times and took the average, because even the highest number with All Arcanum outfits with Overspeed could fluctuate between 195 and 196. Wind Element next, and this one will be interesting because until now Sephiroth only had Wind Mastery outfit, so All Arcanum outfit will already make a difference, but then Shinra Swords with Wind and physical attack self buff provides a big damage increase. And same thing, I have both weapons equipped on the build, and I will just switch them between secondary and sub-equipment slot to test out the damage numbers. So, Dark Heavens deals 800% damage, but have a 4.2% seeability brand, which increases it up to 833,000 damage. And those numbers are with the original Wind Mastery outfits, and normal hits deal 272,000 damage, and with Shinra buff it hits for 470,000. Then with Flora Wand's mid potency physical defense and high potency wind debuff it deals 830,000 damage, and with Genji buffs it increases physical attack from mid to extra high, and that's why the damage difference is so big, and it hits for 980,000 damage, and Overspeed gives it a small boost. Now the same setup but with All Arcanum outfits, and Dark Heavens deals 290,000 damage with normal hits, and then with Shinra buffs they go up to 480,000. And with Flora debuffs it deals 886,000 damage, so it's a bit over 50,000 difference now, and then Genji further boosts it up to 1.03 million damage. And lastly, let's compare the numbers between Shinra buffs and Exploit Weakness. Normal hit is the same, but after Exploit Weakness is applied, Dark Heavens hits for 400,000 damage, so 80,000 less. With Floral debuffs it will hit for 722,000 damage, and that's over 150,000 difference per hit. However, with a high potency physical attack buff, Dark Heavens now hits for 960,000 damage, and with Genji it's 1.03 million damage, so it hits exactly the same as with Shinra buffs. The only difference now will be if you apply additional wind buff, and because my Nanaki color is only 5-star, I can only apply mid-poncy wind buff, but with this mid buff, Dark Heavens now hits for 1.28 million damage. Why is there essentially no difference between Shinra and Exploit Weakness? Shinra Military Swords increases physical attack with mid-poncy, so it's a 20% attack increase, and high-poncy wind buff is a 40% increase, and Exploit Weakness has 40% as well, so in this case elemental damage buff is exactly the same, but Sephiroth is missing that physical attack buff, hence the damage difference until physical attack buff is applied. However, Shinra buffs have a 35-second duration while Exploit Weakness lasts for a whole minute, so if you have a weapon that buffs physical attack, so Camera or Bramble Spine, I think Odin Blade will be better, simply because Exploit Weakness lasts for much longer and you won't need to keep reapplying it so often, and that means over time Exploit Weakness could out DPS Shinra buffs simply because Sephiroth would spend more AB on DPSing instead of having to spend 3 AB to keep reapplying those buffs twice as often. War Next, and that's Sephiroth's hardest hitting weapon, and it deals 940% damage, and with a 5.7 C ability brand it deals 993% damage. And if the target is debuffed, Edgar's Blade now has a 1.2 multiplier, and with it, it will deal 1109% damage. Normal Edgar hits deal 398,000 damage, and with high poncy water resistance debuffed and also that 1.2 multiplier, they hit for 720. Then with Crimson buffs the damage jumps to 1.23 million damage, and Genji further boosted up to 1.31 million damage. Now with Exploit Weakness, normal hits deal 560,000 damage, and with water resistance debuff the damage jumps to 1 million. And Crimson buffs further increase the damage per hit to 1.75 million, and then one more attack buff tier from Genji increases up to 1.87 million damage per hit. And lastly, a comparison between Sephiroth's War Arcanum and all Arcanum outfits, and it's the same case. Numbers are exactly the same, and yes, they might slightly differ, but that's because with the same stats and the same build, every hit number is a bit different, but essentially the numbers are the same, and Sephiroth doesn't lose any damage with his new outfit. Earth Element next with Blue Bramble, which is more of a support DPS weapon, and it debuffs earth resistance while dealing earth damage. And initially Blue Bramble deals 700% damage, but with a 5.3% C ability brand, mine deals 737% damage, and first hit deals 277,000 damage, and then after it applies earth resistance debuff, all hits from now on will hit for 420,000 damage. Crimson buffs increase it further up to 715,000 damage per hit, and with additional Genji stack, Bramble deals 777,000 damage per hit. Now let's see how Exploit Weakness affects it. And after initial hits that applies earth resistance, all hits with Exploit Weakness will now deal 585,000 damage, so that's 165,000 damage per hit difference. And then with Crimson buffs, Bramble hits for 1 million, and then with one more Genji buff, it increases it to 1.09 million damage per hit. And lastly, the comparison between both Arcanum outfits and how the damage might be affected. And again, there is no damage difference at all, so if you have both outfits, unless the boss deals magic damage, all Arcanum outfit will be better with attack for allies boost for the whole team. And Fire is last Sephiroth's proper elemental gear weapon, and my Withering Blaze is OB8 at the moment, so it still has the OB6 plus ability, and it deals 620% damage, but with a 4.9 C ability brand it deals 650% damage, and when Sephiroth is buffed, it also gets a 1.2 multiplier and will deal 780% damage. So the first numbers are with the original Fire Mastery outfit, and normal hit deals 260,000 damage, and with high poncy fire resistance debuff it will hit for 395,000 damage, and that damage is without added multiplier. However, with Crimson buffs and that added 1.2 multiplier, Blaze will now hit for 688,000 damage, and then with one more Genji stack, it bumps it up to 735,000 damage. Now the same thing, but with all Arcanum outfits, and now the first hit deals 275,000 damage, and then with high potency fire resistance debuff, it hits for 413,000 damage, and with Crimson buffs, and that's 1.2 multiplier, Blaze deals 712,000 damage per hit, and then with additional Genji stack it hits for 770,000 damage. And now we have reached a final form, and we can finally compare how Exploit Weakness will affect the numbers. And with high potency fire resistance debuff and Exploit Weakness applied, Blaze deals 590,000 damage, so almost 180,000 damage more, but with Crimson buffs it deals 1 million damage per hit, and with Genji it's 1.08 million per hit, so the difference is around 300,000 damage per hit. Sephiroth doesn't have a proper lightning setup yet, as the only thing he has is a low damage dealing CC alloy sword, which isn't really usable, but with all the buffs it can deal up to 600,000 damage, and with Exploit Weakness it can boost it up to 830,000 damage per hit, but it's a 520% weapon and it can't be compared to actual DPS weapons, even those older ones, so Sephiroth will have to wait until he gets a proper big PP lightning DPS weapon in the future. So the conclusion is that Sephiroth's new set is a game changer for him, and Odin Blade is now his best non-elemental big PP magic weapon, but also the way it affects his every elemental build and increases his big PP damage to a very big PP damage, and it's a damage increase that Sephiroth really needed because most of his weapons are old and rather outdated, so now at least he has got that boost to help him with that. But not only that, because his All Arcanum outfit is exactly as good as his Elemental Arcanum outfits, and that means if you are missing an outfit, you no longer need to grab it. But as for his Elemental Mastery outfits, that's an obvious upgrade. But the only exception would be an Arcanum outfit with increased defenses for hard battles, that you might want to choose that over his new All Arcanum outfit. However, the only way his All Arcanum outfit works and has the same numbers is 30% elemental damage from Arcanum, but Sephiroth also has attack for allies on the outfit, and Tifa has All Arcanum outfit with Reprieve, so she is missing that additional damage boost, and it's just 5%, so it's not a big difference, but it's just in Sephiroth's case that his new outfit doesn't affect or lower damage numbers at all. So overall, if you main Sephiroth, it is a very important set for him that will boost his builds by quite a lot, but only if you really care about Sephiroth, because we have other characters who have newer or better weapons and sets and have a bigger damage output in many cases. So yeah, thank you for coming to my TED Talk, but yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you found it helpful, and I hope to see you next one.